read the Foundation trilogy, which is a science fiction, Isaac Asimov. That was, I guess, my favorite book. I reread the story probably 3 times. It was science fiction, but it was the human race had spread out through the galaxy, and then there was times when it was economics drove the system, and there was always power struggles. Science fiction. I enjoyed it. Not a traveler. No, I'm not. There's parts of Canada I've never been to. I've never been to PEI. So, and I don't have any ambition to, I hear those are nice places, but I guess the only place I would want to go right now would be up to Ottawa to visit my granddaughters. And that would just be a visit. I'd be back in Bathurst. When I would go on vacation, I never had any side trips. I'd go from point A to point B. And so vacation was, to be going to visit my daughter and her family in Ontario, or when I was living in Ontario, it was coming home for a visit with the family down here in the summer. So I guess I'm not a very adventurous. Electrical work. I enjoy science fiction. I read. I like to read. I like historical fiction. I can't watch TV movies because the commercials just drive me up a wall. I'll start a movie and I just turn it off. It's too many, and they just seem to have gone crazy with them. So. I wish I could. When I read that earlier, I was thinking, because there's another resident here. He lives down in the front of the building, and I get email from him with jokes, and I can't think of them now that I'm going blank here. But it was just I was down there pedaling on the bike, and and this joke comes to mind, and it just break me up. I have to stop because I was just, and look, I can't think of them. There's like, he does send some pretty comical stuff. They recently, somebody told me, asked me if I was ever a radio announcer. They said I had a voice I should be on radio, and that was the first time I ever heard that in my life. I guess, maybe when somebody recognizes, you did a good job, or like one time at work, there was a electric motor they had replaced the motor, I guess 3 or 4 times, and because the motor was burning out. And the problem was in the starter for that motor, not the motor itself. So, when I was hooking it up, and I found that problem and called the shop and said, to replace the starter. On the way out, the boss met me on the way out. He was going home. I was working shift that night. And he said, good job. That's when we've had to replace the motor several times, and all the time. And that was a compliment that was nice to get. So I guess when you do your work and somebody recognizes that's when a compliment counts. Biggest fear, it came out of this accident I had. I went to Moncton. They sent me down there to have my neck fixed, and after the surgery, I was paralyzed. I was on a stretcher, and I had a button to I could push to get help. So, and I was totally dependent. I'd wake up in the morning and everything was quiet. There was no sound. And I kind of didn't really recognize where I was. I was by myself, had this button. If I pushed it and nobody came, there was no other. So I would lie there and scared to push the button, because once I did that, I had, if nobody showed up, didn't have a backup. That was it. So I guess that would be to be that just that little button was all I had. That was all I had, and to be back into that, if this situation, I would not want to be there again. I'd like to ask Elon Musk what the hell he's doing. He should stick to his SpaceX and get out of politics. But I'm a drive-through type of guy. Having dinner I don't feel comfortable in social gatherings, period. Eating in a restaurant with a close friend, but as far as having a dinner with somebody, I guess probably my granddaughters maybe, but that's just family. So I don't know that there's anybody I would like to have dinner with. I'm not a very social person. I like to read, and I'm on my computer. I spend my time in my room here. They wonder why I don't go out more. When COVID hit and we had to be isolated, they brought my meals to my room. What more could I want? What's to complain about? Interesting to see my great-grandfather's will. He left a cow to one daughter, and he $1 to different family members, and they were salmon fishermen, basically, farmers and fishermen. Kind of interesting to see. My father was a carpenter, and my grandfather was a carpenter. I don't know how far back carpenters in the family, and I have a brother that's a carpenter. Our ancestors came from England. It was names and places. Interesting to actually, with the computer program I have, you can click on the it'll bring up a map of say Ireland and show you where this person lived, so you can see where go back through where your family roots come from, which is interesting. My grandparents on my mother's side, they were the salmon fishermen and farming. They lost a son in the war. I think my middle name was named after him, but he was alive when I was born. I believe he was my mother's favorite brother. And then when he died in France, my younger brother, Roy, he was named after him. So it's strange that after my mother passed and my youngest brother has inherited the family home, and going through the stuff that Mom had collected, and he found a whole stack of letters from her brother that her brother had written to her when he was overseas. So, and we never knew that that was her personal stuff. The Morrisons, they fished a lot of the salmon license. They had a stand there going back to the James Morrison, which would be my great-great-grandfather. I think he came up from, I think they were in the Burnt Church area. And a couple of brothers came up here by boat. They brought their nets and come along the coast and fished salmon. And they fished until salmon fishing was shut down here in New Brunswick. So that was a lot of years of the home that James built. My grandfather and my mother lived in that home. I think it's gone now, but it was there for a lot of years. We used to go up there in the summertime. They had an ice house. Had to put, you're familiar with an ice house? Yeah, they had to put the ice in it in the wintertime and sawdust. And then they put the salmon in there and keep it. And we used to go up on our grandfather's birthday, and there would be homemade ice cream. That was stuff that you didn't have every day. My grandfather on my father's side, he died a year, I think maybe I was 1 or 2 years old, so I don't remember him. My grandmother would. I remember her as being an old lady in a rocking chair, but she lived across the road. My Uncle Clint, it was his home that she lived in, and my Aunt Hazel looked after her. So Uncle Clint was overseas, and anyway, he had stuff that he brought back from the army. So when I used to go over visiting as a kid, Aunt Hazel would give me they had those viewers there you had that 3D view postcards that you'd look at, little sliding, put up to your eyes and look through it. And there was just a postcard sitting there, so nothing moved, but it made it 3D. But she'd give me something like that, and if I didn't get out of the house fast enough, Grandma would take it and put it away. She'd put it back. That was just her way. So, without that's all I really remember of my father's side. And we had in the community, my Uncle Bert lived next door, and Uncle Clint. In those days, like family lived closer together. Nowadays, we get spread out. We lose that contact. Parents. Well, I thought I was my mother's favorite, but maybe each one of us thought we were our mother's favorites. I don't know. Never heard an argument between them. Never. Until as an adult, I think it was my sister told me one day, says, you always knew when Mom and Dad were arguing about something. Said Mom would be going around the house doing her housework humming. So when Mom was humming, doing her housework, she was having an argument with Dad about something. But our mother raised us, I think our father, back in those days, there was no social safety net. So he would fish in the spring for a logie company. Mom told me that, at the end of that season, if they come out with $10 profit, it was a good year, good season. And he worked in logging camps, and I think he went to Nova Scotia during harvest time. So, and he was a carpenter by trade, but he did what he had to do. So growing up, he was not home a lot. Although at the time, I didn't really think too much about it. Like I was saying earlier, we all had chores to do, and Mom would be up at, I don't know what time, 4 or 5 in the morning to get the wood stove on and the porridge pot on, and get Dad his breakfast, and he'd be off at sunrise to go fishing, and then we would be up and have breakfast and off to school. She managed all that. Wintertime, she would there was nights there when the house was shaking with the wind, cold. Those days we didn't have thermal pane windows. The windows just frosted up. You couldn't see throughout them. And she would set up at night, keeping the kitchen stove going. We had a wood furnace as well. So she would, she looked after her family. And she'd spend the night, I don't know how, she must have slept a little bit, but, and I think when we were young teenagers and going out and getting home late, I think she probably was awake until the last one was in back home, and good mother. Yeah. I still, we have shepherd's pie here. That's got a potato topping, and Mother used to make that with a pie crust topping. So that's the way I like my shepherd's pie, with a crust, not potatoes. I remember spring of the year, my cousin and I we used to roam around back in the orchards back of home. Each farm had an orchard. And there was a pasture with a big chokecherry tree, and we'd be watching that. And in the fall, when the chokecherries got ripe, you'd bring home chokecherries, and Mother would make some chokecherry jelly. I got some in the fridge here now that Wyona made for me, but I don't know what her recipe. I remember, to make it gel, she would use a green apple, but for me, Certo. I buy Certo, and the recipe is in the box. So. Stonehaven, a little community, a little English community, I guess, and at that time, Bathurst was the common language, English. So for us as kids, we had, my cousin, there was a lobster canning factory at the Stonehaven Wharf at that time. And they used to have a big table that they threw the bodies on. They'd take the tails and claws and take the meat out to can it. And these bodies were just, I guess, disposed of. And my cousin and I used to go down, and we'd just load an armload of these lobster bodies and go up in the bank, sit in the grass, eat lobster. It's just, that was just one of the things we did. We spend a lot of time, we learned to swim at the beach. There was always people at the beach, always an adult around. Whenever the bay got warm enough, we'd be there and we'd soak in the salt water. I think that kept us healthy because soaking in salt water. But we'd spend hours, and then as you got better swimming, we used to go down to the wharf and swim off the dock. And at the time, we had our chores to do. Looking back, we had a pretty good life. There was always enough kids around for a ball game, or wintertime. You could come out in the backyard, and you could just listen, and you could hear kids up the road sliding at the hill, Chamberlain's Hill. So you'd take your cardboard box and head up, go sliding, or you could hear them back on the pond skating. And there was always just something to do. And you'd be, it'd be back there in a nice moonlight night, and they'd take a shovel with it, clean the ice off, and we just had a good time. My cousin and I used to, we had at that time the train traveled from Carrick, I guess, to Bathurst, and we'd go back, put nails on the track to flatten them out, or a penny, or there was a maintenance shed there, and sometimes we'd find those little flares. They'd be just the end that was, they had used a flare, and there was a bit of it left. So we would use, stick that in the ground and light it up. Just kid stuff. We roamed around. There was a little woods, so it was cut off from the main woods by railroad tracks, so didn't have to worry about getting lost. And we spent days in there just building teepees and log cabins. Our log cabins never really got anywhere because we just didn't have the equipment, I guess. We were just too young. We'd dig in the side of the hill. We had just kids having fun. Chamberlain's there was a big farm. They had a big orchard. We used to go over there, my cousin and I, and then they had a son at our age. And they had a Western saddle. They'd put that on one of the workhorses, and a couple of kids on the horseback. Away we go back, it'd be a half mile back to the orchard. Yeah, pretty good times. I think I would have liked to fly. I think that was I remember building an airplane that I could sit in and pretend that I was flying. So I think probably that was what I would have liked to have done. I did join the Air Force when I graduated from high school, but I was a ground crew and not aircraft. My cousin was a pilot. I don't know why I didn't, because when my friend and I were over town at our dinner time, and the Air Force was recruiting, so we went in to see them and ended up signing up. We wrote a little test. They pigeonhole you, and I was taking auto mechanics in school, so I was put into a trade for aero engine maintenance or mechanic, and that's what after I graduated, we had a month or so, and then we headed off to Saint Jean, Quebec for our basic training. So yeah, and then when I was stationed in Cold Lake, Alberta, and one afternoon I was over in the flight office, saw the pilot had come in the morning, and I saw his logbook there, and it was Flying Officer Wood, and I inquired who this guy was, because Buster was a pilot, so. And it turned out, yeah, my cousin, he was on his way to Comox, I think, and he was just keeping his hours up on this aircraft, and he stopped in for dinner at Cold Lake. So, and they told me he was gone to the mess hall, so I waited, and next thing, here's Buster coming along, and had to salute him. Yeah, I've been up in a few aircraft. It's even like one day I was watching a video. It was a woman, and she was American, and she was, I think, they had a camera right in the cockpit with her, and it just hard to imagine the stress they go through flying these fighter jets. It's not. It was something to kind of feel what she would have been feeling in that aircraft. But it's something, on a commercial aircraft, and when they're powering up to take off, you feel the pressure, and you think of the pilot up front as managing all that. Of course, then with automation today, I don't know how much the pilot has to actually. Someday, there'll be a recording telling you that this flight is automated and everything is under control and nothing can go wrong. Like when I was studying, they had the old 16-cylinder aircraft engines. They were pretty much going out then. They were disappearing for the turbojets. But yeah, we studied those old radial engines. You know, all the cylinders in a circle. Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. We had a lot of fun going through training. There was one weekend, don't know, there was 4 barracks kind of with a road running between them, and the different trades were in different barracks. So the Air Force police were in one barracks training. These are all student training. And I guess must have been Friday night or something, somebody put a amplifier in the window, a speaker in the window, and yelled out AFP's, some derogatory remark, and then they started yelling back and forth, and then somebody throws a bottle, and of course the bottle it just lands on the street. There's no way they can. And so that at that point, the disturbance was kind of the people on duty decided it's time to shut it down. So the officer came in, everything got quiet. And apparently when he went out to his vehicle, there was some glass by his tire, and he figured that somebody put it there on purpose. So the next day in the mess hall, we come over the PA system that barracks so-and-so was locked down for the weekend, and everybody had to report every 4 hours or something for roll call. They had to be at your room. So, and then they actually ended up locking down all the barracks, so everybody was home. It stayed, couldn't go for the weekend. And it turned out we had a pretty good time. A bunch of young guys. You just make sure you're back to your room for the roll call and then back to whatever you're doing. And we had a good time. So I guess be my parents in the wintertime when the roads would be blocked and you'd get a car stuck. The people in the car would come in to the house to get warm and wait for the plow to come through, and Mom would put on a lunch for them and, just keep everybody comfortable. They stay until either the plow came or they'd spend the night. So, and she would do that. It was unplanned. She just rose to the occasion, I guess you could say. So, other than my parents, I had teachers in high school, a mechanics teacher. He was a quiet guy. I thought I see us there trying to do something. We're a small class, but we would be trying to fix something, and then he'd come in and 2 minutes he'd have it fixed, and we were struggling to do something. He was good. Few people I worked with in those teenage years. I worked at Kent Sales they sold farm equipment, propane, and I was hired on as for the summer to, I guess originally it was to assemble farm equipment when somebody bought something. I enjoyed working there. And of course, all these years that when you're doing these things, you're learning. I was, I showed them a video of, we had what we called our old tractor. It was actually a Model A Ford, and it had the back end had been converted to truck tires. It had two transmissions, and the old four-cylinder engine. You know, I think my garden tractor today has more horsepower than that old four-cylinder engine. But every spring we stripped that engine down, and we had in the shed we had spare parts, you know, and you'd pick out 4 good cylinders and pistons, and so you kind of every year you'd put it together. And so, and the same like bicycles, we didn't get a new bike. You've assembled a bike from the parts you could find. So and this old tractor, my brother and I, after, you know, as adults, we revived the tractor, because when we were kids, that was a big boon to our family to have that tractor to haul the wood out. We used to cut pulp and haul it out. That was during our summer breaks from school, when I guess we were teenagers. We'd be in the woods cutting pulp to sell, and part of the family income. When the guy had looked at the tractor, and he was amazed that we could do all, you know, keep that going. And it was just a part of life, is the way things were. My music, I guess. I still have my music, 60s music. Oh, I like, I guess it's pop music. It's like Elvis Presley, Carl Smith, Johnny Cash, George Jones, all those. I use Spotify, the free version of Spotify, and I have music on all the time. I get up in the morning and I put music. It's sort of like a background. People come in, I know sometimes the music's going, and because I'm not really, like I said, it's background for me. My brother told me one time that when his son and my son, the music they listen to to me, it's angry music. And my brother told me that they could see a difference in their son's attitude after he's been listening to this music. So I like my stuff better. If you look to lyrics now, these songs are maybe 2 or 3 lines just repeated over and over again. There's no real song involved. Taylor Swift, I see her, I mean, she's popular today, top artist, and yet she's always in tights, and, you know, the music, I don't know, she's selling herself. It's not just the music. I don't know if, like, I listen to a song without seeing any video. I enjoy the song. Today, I feel that without the video, the song wouldn't mean as much to them. I don't know. Kent Sales. That was the first paying job. So, yeah, I learned how to fill tractor tires with a brine solution. That was how they weighted tractor tires, instead of having a concrete slab tied to the back. One instance, there was one of the mechanics. He was an alcoholic, so, and the story was that the Harper Kent was upriver somewhere and had a flat tire, and he called the garage, his garage, he owned it, called his garage and said they need a flat, send somebody to fix it. And the guy that took the phone call said, have you got a spare? Yeah. You got a wrench? Yeah. Well, fix the damn thing yourself. and hung up. So I guess when Mr. Kent got back, he stormed into the garage. Comical, but that was, just a story that I think sounds plausible in those days. As a family, like when you're finished school for the summer, and when our father got the green farm, that was a big thing because he had to clear so much land to get the grant and build a house and a barn and all those things. And that was all that was a family thing. So cutting the firewood, I remember my older brother, Donnie, and I back there with, and we used buck saws, there was no power saws then. Cutting, our father had a contract with the mines to supply prip props for the mine. And Donnie and I spent the summer cutting spruce trees that were had to be a certain size and length. And it was kind of a joke. I don't know what Dad was paying us so much a prip prop, but he was getting a lot more for them than we were getting for them. But that was kind of a joke just in the family. But in that process it was all clearing land. Bulldozer came in, the government bulldozer would make its rounds and stump it, and then after that, rocks had to be picked off the ground and all the good stuff. Well, looking back, I guess Buster, my cousin, was my closest friend. Strangely enough, at the time, it seemed like we were friends forever. Looking back, it was only a few years. But when we went on summer vacation, when school was out, and you had the whole summer ahead of you, it just was forever. Looking back, 2 months. You were off school for 2 months, but in those 2 months, we just hung out. We'd get up in the morning, and he lived next door, and we just spent our days. And even during the school year, our grade school teacher, lived just across a field from us. And we'd be up, Buster and I we built I guess you call it a clubhouse. It was a little building we had I think we built bunks in or something. But and we have an extension cord with a light working after dark. This time of the year, it was getting dark early. The next day, the teacher would be telling us that if little boys did their homework, instead of being out hammering all night, they'd get their homework done. So having a teacher next door was... But Buster and I, we just hung out. And now he lives out in the Bruce Peninsula now. He's legally blind. And they come down every summer. We go out for lunch. I don't know, we were just buddies. We shared everything. He was older than me. He is older than me. But we were just fast friends. We slept out, in those days, we'd sleep out at night. To go and put blanket down the veranda and sleep under the stars. We did everything together. Sunday afternoon, we spend back in the orchards through we started one end. There was the Scott family had a crab tree, and I think one apple tree. It was just work our way then, heading west, I guess, along the orchards. And the Chamberlains had a big orchard, and they had a plum tree, which was unique. I remember one time Buster and I, now memory is not perfect, but this was my memory. We were enjoying some plums off this plum tree, And we saw Mr. Chamberlain coming, and him and his sister coming back. So there was a wood rail fence, and we just went over the fence and squatted down behind the fence. So they would come back and they were picking plums, and he said to his sister that, gee, there doesn't be too many plums. He said, don't know, thought there was more than this. And his sister said, yeah. He said, if Clinton had been down, I could understand, but Clinton hasn't been. That was our other Trump. Clinton hasn't been down here, so, and here we are at the other side of the fence. And we snuck away. Well, and then there's also another, the next guy over had a team strawberry patch, which was always handy. But, we didn't destroy things. We'd eat a few apples, in a garden, we'd pull some carrots, but, didn't destroy the garden or anything. We just kind of helped ourselves. Yeah. Betty. She found me, I guess. I was very shy. I think I still am especially around women. In high school, every dinner hour, we always went stand in front of the Kent Theater. Kent Theater's gone now. But her and her friends would be walking along behind us and kind of talking. And so that's how I actually met her. And she eventually we started dating, but it was a very slow process. I used to stay after school on Fridays, and we'd go to a show, and I'd catch the crew going home. I'd get over to the East Bathurst garage, Cormier's garage, and especially in wintertime, you'd wait there, and when the mill crew came out, shift change, you'd be hitchhiking, and somebody would pick you up and get a ride down. Sometimes you get almost all the way home. I remember one winter, didn't get a drive, and it was miserable drifting. And I was pretty near, probably a couple miles from home, when one of the neighbors came by. He had worked late at the mill, so he picked me up and took me down as far as his house was, a quarter mile away from mine. So, but I remember standing in the shade of a drift there to get warmed up before you trudged on home, thinking, but now our mother must have been frantic, thinking where I was. So, but so Betty and I, we dated for a long time. Then I joined the Air Force, and then she moved to Toronto with her friend, and we started corresponding again. And then I came back to Toronto when I got out of the service, and we got married in Toronto and had 2 kids. And the plan was to stay in Toronto long enough to get established and then move home. So 10 years later, said, if we're going to go, we got to go. We can't, we're not getting any younger, so we picked up and came back. She was very outgoing. I must have been hard on her to have me, because I am not very sociable, whereas I think she'd like to be around people and partying. But we had 2 kids, and she passed a couple of years ago. But I was with my wife when she passed. She was here in Bathurst. She was in palliative of care, so my sister-in-law, Sandra, she was home, and she used to spend she'd go up in the morning, and then I'd go up in the evening. So we kind of kept, somebody was there all the time. And stopped breathing one day, and that was it. So, and then during that time, my daughter, Laura, she was struggling with cancer. And it was shortly after that we got word that that their cancer was, they stopped the treatment. They weren't getting anywhere. It was just doing more damage than good. Although she was only in her 50s, but as we lived older, nobody dies a natural death anymore. I came across a picture of us where we were living in Stonehaven, and it kind of jogs your memory that some of the good times you had. I have a letter opener here that when we lived in Toronto, she used to do this home leather craft. There was a company that made address books, letter openers, and she would get boxes of like the metal part of the letter opener and the cardboards. You would have to separate the card like they were press cut. So you separate the parts, glue them together, wrap them with this covering, and when you got paid by the piece, so you produce a couple of hundred of those and take them back. And I still have one of these letter openers on my desk here, and it's older than some of the people that are working here. I think it's generally accepted that we have 3 careers in our life. Maybe that's not anymore, but because when I started off as an auto mechanic, and that morphed into an aircraft engine mechanic. And then when I left the Air Force, I went to work at Goodyear. And I started there building tires, but that was like piecework, and I wasn't there very long when they offered me a job in their lab. So I went to work at the physical lab, and I spent 10 years there. So that was kind of a career. And then when I came back to Bathurst, when I was in Toronto, my brother was running. He had his own electrical company, wiring homes. So he said he would give me a job if I was interested to come back. So I came back here and started my electrical career, and started with him in house wiring, residential, commercial. And then I went to trade school, and I ended up with industrial electrical wiring, like working at the pulp mill. I did my apprenticeship there, and I spent, I guess, 23 years there as an electrician. So that was my 3 careers, I guess. I don't know that I actually planned anything. I think life just kind of led me along. I joined the Air Force because I living in Stonehaven, a lot of people there, they worked at the Bathurst Pulp and Paper, and they farmed, and, I just looked at them and said, John, I don't want to end up like that, where it's just mundane. Every day you go in and work at the mill, come home, do farming. So I joined the Air Force for an exciting life. And when I got through the basic training, which was only 8 months, I found myself getting up in the morning, going to mess hall for breakfast, going in. When I first started at Cold Lake, I was working in Airman's Records. I was working in an office. And I had a mailer out. I had to pick up mail at the post office and deliver around to different offices. So, and then after a while, you realize that it's just another mundane job. You get up in the morning, you go to breakfast, you come out for dinner, you go have supper, you go back to the barracks. So After a couple of years of Air Force, I thought, well, this is not my life. It wasn't really, there was high points, but it certainly wasn't my style. So I never, like I told you, I'm not a very social person, so I never, like, occasionally we'd go into Cold Lake have a beer, but I never really cared for beer. So it was, you have to be a certain personality, I think, to be in the service. And because I had friends there that was their life, they loved it. So anyway, when the opportunity came to leave, I put in for a release and came back to Toronto. And so you see, I'm not planning ahead. I'm simply reacting to conditions. Well, moving from Toronto, that after 10 years at Goodyear, I was like, you could look back over the 10 years and see how, the first years going on vacation, you didn't have the money to spare, you had to pay the rent. So it was always, vacation was coming down, spend your time with the family. But as the years progressed, you found you had, instead of having to scrounge up to pay the rent before you left, financially you were getting better all the time. Yeah. Even the family was growing. I mean, we had decided we were just in Toronto temporarily, but when it came time to actually make that break, and it was starting over when he got back to New Brunswick, and I was working with my brother, but we're starting over again. We bought my uncle's old house. My brother co-signed the mortgage with me. So that was one major decision. At that point, you're no longer just yourself. Your family is also depending on you. So, and I found, like, going back to school, I spent a year at trade school studying electricity, and I was getting, I don't know if it was unemployment insurance or something. I was on a program anyway. I enjoyed the school. I found that I was never a good student. I didn't enjoy school as growing up. It wasn't, when I was at school, I was always looking out the window, wanting to be out there. But this, studying for my trade, I enjoyed that. Teacher was excellent. Sometimes decisions are forced on you, which is the one that happened here. You make a lot of mistakes. I don't feel I was a good father, because in my understanding was that I was responsible to support the family. My wife was responsible to raise the kids. Now, I grew up with that. My mother raised us and our father, and I think we have a tendency to live our life the way we think it's supposed to be. I worked with a young guy at the mill, and he used to say, well, tonight he was going home, he had playtime with his kids, and to me that sounded kind of playtime with his kids. But nowadays, I don't know, they're more conscious. So, I drove my kids to their classes if they were, if they were doing craft work, and I'd take them, drive them to Sunday school, pick them up after Sunday school, did all those things. But looking back, I missed a lot of their growing up because I was busy doing work. So I guess that is one of my regrets. Because I'm not very outgoing, I like school parent-teacher meetings. I never went to any of those, and I should have gone to those. I should have been more involved. You know, a kid, I imagine they're learning when they see their parent isn't investing their time in that. It's looking back, you see all these things you should have done. Can't change it now. Because of my accident, that was a turning point. My brother and I, Dave, my older brother, we used to have conversations about, you know, when we get to a point where we have to, like, I have tools at home that my son is not going to use them, personal stuff. And we used to talk about, you know, when we get to a point where we have to give up driving and, you know, we're just getting that stage and maybe moving into a resident. And it was always sometime in the future we'll have to make those decisions. And then I fell and my life changed, period. You know, just everything was changed. It was the people I've met since that accident. I just, every time, when I end up in the Bathurst Hospital, well, my trip to Moncton to see Dr. Charest, the admitting nurse down there, she used to come by when I was in recovery, I guess. She used to come by on her way into work to see how I was doing. She didn't know me. She worked in a different part of the hospital, but she would stop in and see me. So, very caring person. Dr. Charest, when I met him the evening before he operated, and he looked like just coming off a drunk. His eyes were red. And he had been operating all day. And wasn't too comforting to see him because he's going to be operating on me the next day. He had stopped in to tell me that but the nurse assured me that he was the best. And he fixed me. So then back to Bathurst, there was a crew from Stan Cassidy coming up to assess me to see if they could help me. And I had to be able to sit up in a chair for, I think it was a half hour or something. The occupational therapist, I think she was occupational therapist here in Bathurst, she would come in the morning, and at that point, they would put me in a sling and use a hoist to put me into a chair. So, set me up, and she would do that first thing in the morning because she wanted me to qualify to go to Stan Cassidy. So, you know, another person that really went out of their way to help me. When I came back here, I called her and thanked her for her efforts. In Stan Cassidy, it was a different environment. When I first got there, I would hear people laughing in the hallway, and I just thought it was some of the nurses talking and laughing. And later I realized that it was patients and nurses laughing. So, and I used to, they would come in, after, like we did our therapies for the day, and they had a big, basically for recovery, the nursing staff looked after me, make sure I was healthy. The therapists, they had a big gym, and I'd go down in a wheelchair, put me in a sling, get me, the sling was attached to a hoist in the ceiling on rails, and lift you up and get you set in between the parallel bars, and then put some weight on your feet and get you to walk. And, I could only take 2 or 3 steps and I had to sit. But those people, they worked with me. So Erica started me out. Dominique took over after she had moved on. There was some comical times. Now I can't manage belt buckles, so I have to wear pants that have elastic waists. So down there, I had a pair of jeans on, I think. Can't remember what these, but the belt. We're in the gym, and my belt broke, and my pants are around my ankles, just poof, gone. And the therapist that was with me just reached down, pulled her pants back up, and sent one of her helpers to get something to tie my pants. Embarrassing, not at that point, because that's one of the things this whole journey has taught me, or one of the things I've lost is privacy. They had to do everything. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't do anything. So it took me 5 months down there, and they got me. I can travel with the walker, and I have the power chair. So I've met a lot of fantastic people that otherwise I wouldn't have met. When I came here, my goal was to go home, because I have a house in East that I wanted to live in. And I guess when I arrived at St. Cassidy, I still thought that I'm going to come out of here and go back to my old life. It was heartbreaking when I realized that's not going to happen. So there's an orchid up there, top of the fridge, that one of the nurses made that for me. She, one night, I was, I guess, realizing my life had changed. So I was pretty emotional, and she held my hand for a couple of hours. So she was special. We were raised in the United Church, but I think I'm agnostic, and somehow or other, I think humans want to think there's a God that's looking after things, that there's somebody bigger than us. But I guess maybe I was looking for God because I went to different denominations. Can't believe that that there's a God that knows if there's a sparrow falls to the ground. I think nature, like this planet we're on, the Bible teaches us things. We should look after plan like you're going to die, live like you're going to die tomorrow, plan like you're going to live forever. Well, this planet, we're using up the resources, and we're seeing it start to fall apart. And I don't know if the Christian, the people that take the Bible literally, if they think that God is going to save this planet. I kind of think that I don't think he's going to step in and save it. I think he's left it to us. If there is a God, that he's not going to. And as far as the planet goes, we are not going to destroy the planet. Nature will make decisions, and we might not like the decisions about the heating up of the planet, but nature will adjust things to suit the survival of the planet. And we better either be gone before it gets unlivable, or that's where Elon Musk comes in. I think going to Mars, and that's another step for humanity. But religion, it seems to me that, you take the Southern Baptist slaves who really believed in God, and I think we'd like to see that son of a gun down the road that's such a miserable guy have to pay for that. I don't think that Hitler is suffering. He just died, and he was an evil person, maybe. Nothing is black and white. Originally, we went to church and Sunday school, and I thought the Bible was kind of almost like a manual for the human being. And there's things in there that I can't, I think there's a section of the Bible that it says that if you're a clay pot, if an animal dies in your clay pot, you break the pot and throw it away. You don't use it. And I kind of say, well, that was a sanitary thing. And if they told the people at that time that there's germs in that pot, they wouldn't have known what germs were. It's not something you could see. So it was simpler just to make a rule. How did they know? Did they learn that? Somebody somewhere realized that dead animal was not good for your health. So I wonder how that this book, the Bible, is supposed to be inspired by God. So I don't really believe there's a God that's overlooking everything, but then there's these things that I can't explain to myself. And there's scientists that are Christians, they believe. I see people that are firm in their religion, and sometimes I envy their beliefs, that they're so trusting that everything is going to be good. I had a friend one time, he was volunteering at the hospital. He used to, I don't know if he was dealing with palliative care or what, but there was a woman, her husband was dying, and she was scared to be spending time with him because he had always been a rough character, a fighter, and she was scared of what he'd be like. And my friend told her that when people die, they don't struggle. Everything is calm. So, and I saw my mother pass, and she is same as my wife. They just stop breathing. There's no struggle. But we seem to cling to life from her. We do everything to stay above that final. And I'm with my fear of being totally incapacitated, where I need somebody to feed me, and I've already signed that do not resuscitate, but that's not. And my brother has authority, and I've already talked to him about it, that if I'm in the hospital and they got me hooked up to equipment, they're not to keep me going. And he has the authority to say, shut it off. And I said, and he's a Christian, he's strong believer. So I asked him if would he be able to tell them to end it for me? Would that be something he could do? Because it would be against his belief. But he told me he would, that he knew that was what I wanted, and he would do that. You have to be sane, you have to be good mental condition to make the decision to end your life at some point.
But if you get like your mind is going and you're getting into a vegetative state, and these are the conditions you don't want to be, this is when you want to say this is the end. But now your mind is not competent, so you can't make that judgment. So if you try to make it beforehand, like my friend down the hall said, she said, I'm going to sign that paper to end my life, but he says I'm reserving the right to withdraw my signature. So if at the end he decides he doesn't want to go, he said, I not cut the shot. Don't hold that needle. I'm not ready. So I don't know. I'm really something I'm thinking about. I haven't done anything fantastic. I have my granddaughters. That's nature. We live on. I will live on in the memories of the people that have been in touch with, in contact with through my life. And some will be good, some will be bad, but that's the way it's. And as they die, then my memory, I will disappear through time. So you take my brother and I, we built a camp in 1992, log cabin. Roy and I, my younger brother, who is 80. He's 79 now. But we were in our, 30 years ago, 92. So the cabin is still there. We started off, we had to cut the swath through the lot where the cabin was going to be a half a mile in. So we had to cut the strip of land to put a road in. And in that process, we came across a section where it had been a piece of road that our father had built for clearing the land, I guess. We've kind of incorporated that in our road. Our road is not straight, it curves. The idea there, other than kind of having this section of road that our dad made, was also we didn't want hunters to be able to stand at the end of the road and hunt. We wanted to keep this. We are not hunters, my brother and I. So we built that, but the log cabin is still standing and in good condition. My brother is caretaker of it. They had me back there this year, but these last years I haven't gone back there. But it's on our family lot. And but the thing is, every year my brother has to clear the road, cut the small trees back, keep the road open. And when he's not gone, and my youngest brother, he probably will end up at the property. But in the end, nature will grow back. That road will be gone. Just as when we were working back there 20 years from when we were kids back there, when Roy and I were building a log cabin, we were going down into the chopping to pick out logs. We were building with popple trees. And we were in an area where, as kids, we had a garden there. And you could still see the outline in amongst the trees. You could still see the road, the garden rows, drills that we had still in the ground, but the trees are growing up. It was amongst the trees. So, that's what we leave behind us. It'll close in behind us, and eventually it will be a name of somebody's tree. Talking to over the years, this family tree stuff, and I was talking to Alder. She was married to my brother Donnie, And she was talking about how her children, my nephews, are starting to be interested in family trees. So you have to get to a certain age before you start to have an interest. But when I did the family tree and I had enough books printed up that I had one for each granddaughter, and I imagine her sitting in her drawer, but maybe 20 years from now they'll start to wonder about their roots and they'll look through it. Fondly. But I know there's people out there that have not, they're not going to think of me that way, but running against the grain, I was trying to change things that other people didn't think wasn't what they thought was. I thought it was better they didn't. My wife and I, when we get talking about something and she'd be telling me how something she remembered, and I would say, wasn't like that at all. She was so sure after I was, well, maybe, I guess. But then I went up, my brother, this was after I left Goodyear, and they were going to shut that factory down, and today I think it's apartment building. They leveled it. But I had gone up, my brother he was the RCMP, and he was in Niagara Peninsula, so I went up to visit him, and he drove me out to Goodyear in New Toronto, Lakeshore. And I went in to see, just to visit. I don't know how long I'd been away, but just went in to see people that I'd worked with for 10 years. And I went into the lab where I had spent 9 of those 10 years. And there was equipment there that was in the wrong place. And they were mounted, and they were big, heavy presses. They didn't move them. So obviously my memory wasn't, that was kind of a learning episode for me, because it made me realize that, you don't remember exactly. Really interesting to know that one person's memory, and I've seen it. My brother and I have a memory of, as a kid, my cousin Buster and I were in middle of a mine. We were digging in a hole in the ground, and we wanted to do some blasting. We decided we wanted to try some blasting, so decided to get a bottle and put some gasoline in it and bury that into the ground and light it and blast. So we went to my house, and there was a can of gas in the shed, and we had a bottle. Fortunately for us, my mother saw us going, and she, "What do you got there?" And that was the end of our blasting. She, "No, you're not gonna light that bottle of gasoline." So my brother Roy remembers that as his experience. I haven't corrected him. I haven't told him that I thought it was Buster and I, because now that I know memory, maybe it is him. Maybe it was his experience. Maybe I just thought it was me. The memory. It's hard to advise anybody in the future, because things are changing. To me, family was important. My granddaughters have grown up without me. I know them, to see them. I see when they were first born, I would go to Ottawa 2 or 3 times a year to visit. But over the years, they visit once a year. They don't know me. I don't know them. Like, if they live next door, when they're having a row with their parents, they would come to their grandparents' house. I had that growing up. When mother put something on the table that I didn't like for supper, I'd go over to my uncle's house, and she would put a plate out, and I'd eat there.
families have lost that because now we've spread out now. Just being here, it's kind of fascinating to see different countries at different stages of the same process. Talking to a Filipino, and she was saying that at this point, they're just starting to get seniors residence. That most seniors are stay at home. Their children look after them, but we did that years ago. That was the way it was. And then when your children all move away and there's nobody to stay at home with you and look after you, so senior residents become the thing. And in the Philippines, it seems to be moving towards that. I was thinking in terms of they were catching up with us, or like we're moving parallel, but they're always 10 years behind us, say. And I thought, maybe I'm backwards. Maybe we are the ones that are going downhill, and they're just getting that the fact that the parents and the children looked after the parents was the better system. And we're not ahead of them, we're actually behind them. We're getting, and it's just everything. Girl from Cameroon, like I ask her, on your day off, do you go for coffee? And she says, no, don't drink coffee. And back in our home, they drink alcohol. They have you have a glass of scotch or whatever the drink is, and that's acceptable in that society. And go back here in Canada when drinking was much more. I don't know if we're more conscious of it now. We got all these AA societies to, when you're an alcoholic, you get help. In the old days, you were an alcoholic, but you weren't named about alcoholic. You just drank a lot, and sometimes some alcoholics were rough and tough and beat their wives, and some don't. And just are we growing as a society? I think we are, but change is not always, everything is not going to change to the good. Same as when you asked about whether AI was going to be an improvement or not. Well, it will be, and it won't be, because speaking of memory, us humans might not have perfect memories, but the AI will. I read an interesting story. It was science fiction, and these two supercomputers, the Americans built one, the Russians built one. You read that? These two computers hooked up. The people that designed them didn't plan it, but they hooked up, and then the one computer took over, and they wanted to build a better computer. So they said, we want Newfoundland. I don't know what the country. We want Newfoundland. We're going to level that. We want to build our supercomputer there. You have to vacate the property, evacuate everybody, and you have 6 months to do it. And the people in charge says, 6 months? We can't possibly clear that area in 6 months. And the computer says, well, don't worry, we can. And they were in charge of all the weapons. So computers, that's where AI is not going to be necessarily good. They might make decisions we don't like. Nature makes decisions we don't like. One of the jokes about these electric vehicles, we drive electric vehicles trying to save nature and protect the trees, and then you get a hurricane and there's a big tree falls down and crushes your electric car. Is that karma? Is that you're trying to save that tree and he just destroyed your car? I can't understand. I mean, it's all around us. The forests are burning, which is multiplying the pollution. And we're trying to, and then you have the people that say, well, what's the point? Our country is not going to make that big a difference. Well, somebody has to do something, and you can't just say, well, because we're not going to save the place alone, we still have to do our part and hope that other people. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, so whether we're getting there or not, I don't know, but I'm glad I'm not going to be here in 20 years' time. But I'm worried about my grandkids. These people that deny or that disregard the fact that the temperature is coming up, I don't know what they think, how they think they're going to be exempt from the same. Like, if this all falls apart and somebody is, something goes drastically wrong, and that guy with his herd of sheep out in the middle of some desert is sipping his tea and looking after his flock and has no idea that the rest of the world around him is collapsing. He's living in his world. So I don't know how the people in power, I don't know, our political system has to be, we can't be combative in everything. They've got to work together. Here in Canada, I find when I was younger, the two main parties they balance each other out. The Conservatives were business, pro-business. Liberals were more for the population, I guess, liberal. And they, back and forth, they managed the country, and we kept kind of middle country. But now they're getting too far left and too far right, so that they just don't work together. That's the perception. I don't know if, but those are the people that make decisions. We can't, there's people who worry about world government. Well, we have to organize ourselves, and our premier of our province is concerned about New Brunswick, and he makes decisions that are good for New Brunswick. And then you have the Prime Minister of Canada, and he's got the responsibility of the whole of Canada, so he has to consider not just New Brunswick, but he has to consider all the other, and so working together, they should manage. But then when it gets out of whack, same as in a family, if one member decides that this family exists only for his benefit, and you need to consider the needs of everybody to exist, to prosper. I'm really like to see the space travel fascinates me. Elon Musk with his Boring company and building spaceships that'll be able to move people. I just hear talking to my Amazon units here, the computer there. How long does it take light to travel from the sun to the earth, and how long does it take to get to? It's all interesting stuff. I just read that there's a planet that looks like Earth, and it's only 4 light years away. 4 light years, oh yeah. Yeah, only 4. Imagine that. It'll just take us about 20 generations, maybe. I don't know, unless there's something. And everything is moving forward. So I guess I believe our hope for the human race is to populate the universe. For my family, it's so important to enjoy your work. You need the work. You have to do something with your life, but it's good to be in a job that you enjoy, because you do spend a big part of your life at a job. So it's best to find something you like doing, so it's not really a job and you can make a living at it. I would think that's, I guess, the advice I would leave.